We are extremely tiny, walking on the surface of the earth. At these small distances, everything looks flat, right? But for it, they just want to troll you, I think. Maybe
Maybe.
people are they're just deliberately trying to troll you, trying to provoke a reaction to you.
All viewers and everyone, literally everyone, wants to know that your journey in IIT Kanpur.
Can you give me one of their logic? What is the logic? There are other ways of also, finding out. Only way he can access those events in the past. Matlab, he basically talks to his daughter who is living on Earth. They can be accessed via gravity.
For some of the videos, I was pretty convinced that Earth is flat or what.
Okay.
So, hello everyone. Today we are going to talk to the person who I thrive to be like. The person who is so humble, so kind, very much qualified in physics. My teacher, my mentor, and my idol, Dr. DibyaJyoti Das. So,
Hi.
hello sir, welcome to Sci-Fi Talk.
Thank you so much.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Fez?
I'm good, sir. I'm good too. Even though most of you guys sir को जानते ही होंगे from his channel for the love of physics, but since अगर for some reason you are living under the rock, let me tell you a little about him first. So दिव्यज्योति दास सर एक PCMB student थे in his school. 11th में उन्होंने जगदीश बोसनाथ साइंस विनर थे और MSc इन्होंने IIT से फिनिश किया है. इन्होंने कई सारे प्रोजेक्ट्स पे काम किया है लाइक ऑप्टिकल ट्वीजर्स, स्कैनिंग, टनलिंग, माइक्रोस्कोपी एक्सेट्रा. तो ही इज क्या कहते हैं उसे, ही इज वेल रेप्यूटेड इन हिज फील्ड and I'm very glad and feeling very lucky to have you on my channel, sir.
You're being very kind to me.
I did a little
Thank you so
research
much.
on you. आपका मैंने रेज्यूमे मतलब निकाला था वेबसाइट से, DU की वेबसाइट से.
Okay.
हाँ, तो उधर I was shocked by seeing your qualification.
नहीं
I was
इतना
like,
कोई
how can one
qualifications
person
नहीं है.
do all these things?
इतना कोई qualification नहीं है. You are just being very kind to me. That's
I
all.
didn't know, sir. So first, पहले तो in our channel we differentiate between science and fiction by thinking out of the box.
Okay.
It's called Sci-Fi Box.
Okay.
So first segment of a podcast is called Cunning Conspiracies.
Cunning Conspiracies. All right.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
So now you know humans को conspiracies बहुत ज़्यादा पसंद है.
Mm-hmm.
And physics as a field is no exception to human nature.
Mm-hmm.
है ना? So there are a significant amount of people who think Earth is flat. So if you met someone like in a metro or on train or on bus somewhere, मतलब किधर भी, so and he discusses that Earth is flat, he want to debate with you on that, how would you respond to him?
Well, first of all, I don't think आज के time पे there is a significant amount of people.
Not in India, means in US or Canada, there are a lot of people. They actually do movements for this.
Yeah, I was a little puzzled. How is that possible? I mean, अगर आप let's suppose we are in India, right? If I was talking to somebody who is very senior, like 80 years old and 90 years old, somebody
Okay.
who may not have been educated, right? School भी नहीं गए होंगे उस time पे. And their idea of the world is just based on what they have learned in their villages. They may not even have seen the image of an earth. तो ऐसे लोग भी है, I know that, and I don't have any problem with the fact that they have these ideas because they are, they are illiterate in a way to say. But I don't know how such people can exist in US or Canada. I mean, most people there are educated to a certain degree. They know that the history of science. Forget anything about science. You have images from satellites of the Earth that shows you pictures of a round Earth. What more can you need beyond that? I mean, we can devise experiments to say, okay, based on this and this logic, Earth is round, but we actually have images of the round Earth. So beyond that, what can you say? I don't know how to convince these people, if at all they exist.
While researching about flat Earth, I've seen many videos on YouTube giving proofs that Earth is flat. And for some of the videos, I was pretty convinced the Earth is flat or what. They are
Can
मतलब
can you
very
such
much.
can you give me one of their logic? What is the logic?
One of the logic was, let me see. They devised an experiment, means demonstration. They said since Earth is moving at very high speed, around 10 to the power 4 kilometer per second. So if we take a ball and we dip it, tennis ball, and we dip it in water, and we throw that at that speed, how is it possible that water will stick to it? So if it does not stick on the tennis ball, then it shouldn't be able to stick on the earth going with the same speed. That's what they said. So what are your thoughts about it?
Why water sticks to the earth's surface, you mean?
Yeah.
That's because of gravitational force.
They say there's no gravity. Gravity is just
They even
theory.
deny gravity.
They even deny gravity.
So
they
what-
deny Einstein's theory as well about gravity.
So what do they imagine happen if they jump from the top of a building?
They are like there is a buoyant force pulling them downward.
Acha.
They are very much their logic is not very much correct, but they say what they say.
Okay, so I think beyond the fact that there are actual images captured from satellites that the Earth actually is more or less spherical in shape, there are other ways of also finding out that Earth.
Yeah, that was my question. If you have to demonstrate just by sitting or using minimal equipments, how can you demonstrate while being on Earth? Earth is around. Is there any way to demonstrate?
Yeah,
that?
there are, I think, couple of very simple ways. For example, if you are on a beach, looking at the horizon, how the in front of you have an ocean or sea, and then you take a telescope and you look at a boat or a ship that is going away from you with time. So what you will see over a period of time, if you have a sufficiently powerful telescope, is that the boat slowly sinks downwards into the ocean. And that usually happens because of the curvature. I think I saw one particular video somewhere in YouTube where what they did was they took a very simple boat and they had a screen. In that screen, they drew three lines, and the boat was traveling directly away from the beach, and there was a person looking at it through binoculars or a telescope. And what happens initially, the lowest stripe would sink, and then the second stripe would sink, and the third would sink, suggesting that there is a particular curvature across which the boat is traveling, and as it goes beyond that particular line of sight, it looks as if these stripes are sinking. So that is one way of figuring out, okay, that there is a particular curvature to the Earth. And even if you look at the flights, we have flights happening all over 24/7 all across the planet. You have places in the southern hemisphere, in the northern hemisphere, which can be easily connected by flights that follow that particular curvature on the surface of a globe. And those time periods, those distances would not make sense if you try to project the entire globe on a flat surface. अगर तुमने किसी ग्लोब को फ्लैट सरफेस में प्रोजेक्ट किया, लेट्स सपोज यू ट्राई टू कनेक्ट न्यूजीलैंड टू लेट्स सपोज अर्जेंटीना, देन ऑन अ फ्लैट सरफेस द डिस्टेंस इज ह्यूज, but on the actual globe the distance is very close. So if you look at the time periods that these flights are actually taking and the speeds at which they are traveling, and then you calculate the distance, it is very easy to figure out that the Earth actually is a globe. Only then it makes sense. Otherwise, it won't make sense if you try to project the entire map of the world on a flat surface. Those points would not be connected by such short flight times. There are many experiments like that, but I think the picture of the Earth itself should be sufficient for maximum people.
Yes, sir. They are like in 1969, it was just fake animated. So I don't think so that's true, because animation wasn't really good at that time.
Okay. But I think like pictures of we are actually very fortunate कि हम 21st century में रहते हैं, that we have satellites circling the Earth and taking pictures and giving us an image of what the Earth looks like. People were convinced in the 16th century itself the Earth might most likely is a globe. And even beyond that, I think there were some geometrical experiments performed where you calculate the angles of a triangle. If you draw a large triangle on the surface of the earth sufficiently large triangle, then it is the sum of the angles is not exactly 180 degrees, because the surface is not Euclidean, the surface is not flat. That is also one way of figuring out that the surface has a particular curvature to it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's actually very clever. The third way you recommended is very clever.
Yeah.
So, why do you think they chose flat? Why not cube or cuboid? It also has flat.
Because I think it goes back to our common sense in a day-to-day life. Earth is huge compared to us, right? We are extremely tiny, walking on the surface of the earth. At these small distances, everything looks flat, right? तुम इधर देखते हो, right, left, आगे पीछे देखते हो, everything looks flat. At these distances, we don't really see the curvature of the earth, right? You only see the curvature of the earth when you go above. When you go to a particular distance from the surface of the earth, then you see, okay, the horizon is curved. The more you go above, you see the shape of the earth coming into form of an image. But at these distances, we are very much bound by the sort of क्या बोलते हैं, common sense. But the common sense is just based on what we have seen. The more data you gather, we should try to sort of क्या बोलते हैं, come out of that limited thinking.
Yes, that's right. Okay, next question. If you are a flat earther watching, if any flat earther is watching, I hope you are convinced that earth is round.
I don't think they will be convinced. I think that and this is my theory, okay? There are people जिनको तुम बोलोगे कि बेटा ये काम मत करो, तो वो वही करेंगे. So I think it has something to do with the human tendency to just seek attention by rejecting what you are saying. It has nothing to do with data. It has nothing to do with science. Yeah, even evidence. Even if you give them evidence, they will figure out some logic to counter that evidence. Just because I think, what is the word for it? They just want to troll you, I think. Maybe people are just deliberately trying to troll you, trying to provoke a reaction to you. So it doesn't. I don't think that any scientist or any scientific body or any person who has been educated takes them seriously. These are just okay, yeah, these people exist. आजकल दुनिया में तो बहुत लोग होते हैं. Everybody is free to have their opinion.
Yes, sir. Just a matter of fun for scientists. अब कॉन्स्पिरेसी की बात हो ही रही है. How can't we include Joules Verne, the writer? His books like Journey to the Center of the World, Earth to Moon, Off on a Comet, Mysterious Island. काफी लोगों को लगता है सर कि they are real, based on real events or real stories or real places. So, do you think it's possible?
Like having a world inside the Earth's surface or something like that?
Maybe like that, or maybe having a mysterious island somewhere which we haven't figured out it exists.
Deep within the Earth's surface? Yeah, somewhere maybe due to some geological
somewhere near Bermuda, maybe Bermuda Triangle.
I don't know. I mean, there are caves. I think I have seen social media mein there are images where there are caves, and when you go inside these caves, you see these small water bodies or something like that. So वो तो I think है बहुत सारे, but deep within the Earth's surface, I don't think so.
Is it possible that something like that should exist?
Well, you see, if you look at the technological advancement of the human race, we have gone far beyond into space. हम बहुत ऊंचाइयों पे गए हैं, but as far as going deep inside the Earth's surface, that is still a technological challenge. I mean, how deep can you build a tunnel to go deep inside? The pressures, the heat is going to be so high that it is an engineering challenge to even go a couple of kilometers deep inside the Earth's surface. So I don't think it's. I mean, when you talk about going very deep inside the Earth's surface, that's probably not likely.
Okay, that answers it. And काफी लोगों को लगता है the Tomorrowland movie. Have you seen the movie Tomorrowland?
I have not seen.
Actually, it's a very good movie. Basic उस movie का यही है कि Edison and Tesla and Jules Verne, all these scientists made a parallel universe. Means they contacted the parallel universe somehow, and the people of those universe are well advanced than us, but they are also human, but well advanced. So every now and then they contact Earth, and they just take away the smartest people, like kidnap them.
Okay.
So Do you think someday it's going to happen to you? You'll be kidnapped to parallel universe or something since
And
you're very smart.
क्या करते हैं फिर? What do they do with after the kidnapping?
They just let them live there, and since काफी लोग इतने स्मार्ट होते हैं तो उनको भी लगता है कि हाँ ये वर्ल्ड ज्यादा अच्छा है as compared to our Earth.
ज़्यादा अच्छा है in what sense?
Everything, in technological sense, in political sense, in economical sense, everything. There's freedom actually to innovate, to imagine it. I know there's no bureaucracy going on. So do you think you would like to live there as compared to here?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Why is that, sir?
Because I think when you define smartness, you define it by IQ, right? Somebody who is good in maths, physics, right? But jitna मैंने देखा है, there is the smartness beyond these things. There is social intelligence. There is emotional intelligence. There are people who may not be good at maths or physics, but they may be good at arts, painting, music. They may be good at sports. They may be good at having good conversations. They may be good at storytelling. So I think जब हम smartness की बात करते हैं, usually मैं बोल रहा हूँ, हम जब usually smartness की बात करते हैं, हम सिर्फ एक IQ जो होता है, we talk in terms of IQ, like people who are good at maths and logical thinking, rational thinking. But I have met people who are living very happy lives who may not necessarily be that extremely rational or good at mathematical thinking, but they may have other compensatory qualities. And I think living a fulfilling life requires a balance of all. It requires you to have a certain rational approach towards things, but it also requires that you have a certain emotional intelligence. You have a certain, social intelligence, how to talk to people, how to do storytelling, how to appreciate the arts, and an interest in music and an interest in sports. So many things, life is colorful in that way. And I personally would prefer that kind of life.
Okay. That also makes sense. That's a good choice. But I'd like to go to that place somehow.
Okay.
I'm fed up of politics here, sir.
Okay. But हो सकता है वहाँ पे भी हो, because if you go to some science department, ऐसा नहीं है कि अंदर politics नहीं होता. On different levels politics happens.
ये भी है सर. मेरे कॉलेज में बहुत होती थी, आपस में प्रोफेसर लोग करते थे.
वो तो एकेडमिक दुनिया में बाहर से it looks just physics and all, but अंदर जहाँ पे भी इंसान होगा ना, वहाँ पे तो politics होता ही है. Because politics is basically people trying to manage each other, people trying to get what they want from others, not give what is required of them. It is just that management. और वो हर जगह है, business में है, academics में है, I think दूसरे institutions में भी है. So wherever human beings are there, on some degree of politics will be there, I think.
That's also true, sir. And कहाँ था मैं आगे? Just a second, sir.
All right, no problem.
Now, the people of parallel universe are not only smart. On this earth, people are smart as well, as we know.
But मैं एक बात बताऊं. If you look at the theory of evolution, then the next generation is always like best, the survival of the fittest, right? The purpose of the generations that survive on and on and on, they are better and better and better and better in a natural sense of the word. So if you compare what human beings are today compared to previous species that existed, Neanderthals and all that, then as far as smartness is concerned, we are smart. ऐसा नहीं है that we are a dumb population. It looks dumb in comparison within each other, but if you compare generations, we are at the end of the day winners. Every person who is born is a sperm which is a winner out of million.
Yes, sir.
Every human being, no matter how you can think of them as dumb in comparison to somebody else, but he is a winner among his competitors. So in a way, survival of the fittest tells us that we should be becoming better and better and better.
Yes, sir.
So, but it's just that in that group of population, there is diversity. Somebody is very intelligent, somebody is a mathematician, somebody doesn't even understand little simple multiplication. वो भी possible है. The huge amount of diversity is there.
Variation in nature is also very important for survival.
Always there. It's always there.
So we have also created means huge mega structures like Large Hadron Collider, right, sir? So
Yeah.
have you been there, LHC?
I have not. I have met people who have been there. I personally have not.
Okay, how was the experience, or means have you ever dream of going there?
Maybe if I get a chance, yes. But
So-
जो भी वो काम कर रहे हैं and everything is accessible. So as far as understanding what they are doing, there is something that you can read about it and you can appreciate it from far away also.
What would be the first thing you do while arriving there?
I don't know. I probably meet a couple of people, talk about their experiences there, how is everything going. There is always a human factor, ना लोगों से बात करके जो तुम्हें मालूम चलता है and what you read about it are two different things.
सर मैंने कहीं तो पढ़ा था कोई ऐसा आर्टिकल में कि there is a chance LHC can create a black hole, microscopic black hole.
Okay. हाँ हमने भी सुना था बहुत टाइम पहले.
Is it dangerous or is it a threat to the earth or is it just ऐसे casual? What is the मतलब क्या है?
I think the idea goes back to when you bombard subatomic particles at very very high energies. So GTR में क्या होता है, black holes are basically anything can be condensed into a black hole if you condense that matter into sufficiently small volumes so that the density becomes very very high, near you can say density approaches infinity. So I think the idea goes back to when you bombard two particles together, no matter how small particles, let's suppose protons, at such high energies, they're probably 99.99% the speed of light, at extremely high energies, then for a very very short period of time these particles fuse together in a very tiny volume of space. So I think that led to the idea that if sufficient amount of matter can be condensed into a very very tiny volume of space, maybe that would lead to the creation of black holes. But I don't think that it's a very likely event because इस तरह के जो particle collisions है वो nature में होता रहता है. You know, it's not just in LHC में तो it's an artificial event. But if you look at intergalactic space, there are particles traveling at very very high velocities, protons, ion particles striking each other. But I don't think there is sufficient evidence to say that black holes are being created randomly in space. Black holes are usually created at the center of galaxies or at the locations of heavy dying stars which are very very heavy. So as far as मुझे लगता है evidence is concerned, all the black holes that we know of are being created by dying stars, at the center of galaxies where there is a huge amount of concentration of mass, not by particle collisions. Although उसमें एक और factor है that particle collisions में जो black hole create होगा, the size of it will be so small that it will actually evaporate instantaneously. You see, black holes evaporate. That comes from the idea of Hawking radiation.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Smaller the black hole is, it will instantaneously evaporate. So even if there is a possibility of black holes being created, they will instantaneously evaporate into nothingness.
Actually, this idea went very much viral due to some online. So LHC official LHC को safety एक वो issue करना पड़ा कि ऐसा कुछ नहीं है, वो ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं होगा, कोई नहीं, अर्थ इज गोइंग नोवेयर, ब्लैक होल हमारा मतलब अगर क्रिएट, वैसे तो बहुत कम चांस है लेकिन हुआ भी तो इट विल गो अवे, ऐसा करके ऑफिशियल वेबसाइट पे लिखा हुआ था.
आई रिमेम्बर देयर वाज बहुत सारे न्यूज़ आर्टिकल्स आए थे एक टाइम पे 2008-9 के आसपास.
हाँ यस वो एंड स्पेशली द आर्टिकल्स ऑनलाइन ऑन वेबसाइट्स दे ओवर एक्सैजरेट वेरी मच. एक कोई एस्ट्रॉइड भी पास में से जा रहा है तो दे आर लाइक अर्थ इज गोइंग टू डिस्ट्रॉय इन 17th अप्रैल ऐसा करके. सो फॉर क्लिकबेट आई
थिंक दैट इज द नेचर ऑफ जर्नलिज्म टुडे. कुछ भी होता है तो दे थोड़ा खींच करके दिस पर्सन इज गोइंग टू डिस्प्रूव आइंस्टाइन. मैंने पता नहीं कितने आर्टिकल पढ़े इस तरह के. आइंस्टाइन्स थ्योरी फाइनली टेस्टेड, बहुत पढ़े आई थिंक. बट व्हेन यू रीड द कंटेंट में शायद होगा कि कुछ समथिंग इज हैपनिंग. एज अ साइंटिस्ट योर पर्सपेक्टिव ऑफ द इवेंट्स एंड एज अ जर्नलिस्ट तुम जब क्लिकबेट आर्टिकल लिखते हो तो उसमें बहुत ज़मीन आसमान का फर्क है.
यस वो मसाला थोड़ा डालते हो लोग,
मसाला थोड़ा ज़्यादा ही डालते हैं मुझे लगता है.
हाँ ओके सर आगे बढ़ते हैं. हाँ, now since we are talking about black holes, so how can't we talk about the movie Interstellar? Have you watched the movie Interstellar?
I have watched it. 2 times, I think.
Every physics enthusiast have watched it some point of time.
I
So,
am also a big fan of Christopher Nolan. So I
me
had
too,
watched
sir, me too.
Inception, yeah. So मुझे तो देखना ही था वो.
Yes, sir. So, he does very, मतलब हर चीज perfection के साथ करते क्रिस्टोफर नोलन. वो best animation of black hole ever since it's in that movie. So, वो जो सीन होता है जब जोसेफ कूपर enters a black hole उसके अंदर and he floats everywhere and all the dimensions are there. Time dimension is actually length in space. So what is that? मतलब थोड़ा सा मेरे को डाउट है. Can you clear that up? क्या होता क्या है उस ब्लैक होल के अंदर जाते ही क्या हो रहा होता है उसके साथ?
I don't think that is some kind of a proven scientific theory. It borders on science fiction to a certain degree, I think. Okay. So I think that the whole idea was that time has stopped, and मुझे exactly याद नहीं है what everything that has ever happened can be accessed by Cooper, something like that.
Yes, yes.
And the only way he can access those events in the past, matlab he basically talks to his daughter who is living on Earth. They can be accessed via gravity. It is gravity that sort of permeates through different dimensions. So I think at the center of the black hole, what he hypothesized in that movie was the existence of multi-dimensions, which gives the central character Cooper a way to navigate any point in time and talk to his daughter via gravity. So gravity ke through what he creates is those sandstorms kind of things. This is Morse code say he basically gives some complete theory of the universe to his daughter, and daughter then uses that theory to save the Earth's population and repopulate in some satellite. Something like that, if I remember correctly.
Yes, that was exactly.
But that is the domain of science fiction, I would say. Because I don't think that is any concrete theory. We don't really know what happens at the singularity of a black hole. The singularity is supposed to be a point of infinite density. Once you go there, nothing. We don't really know as far as scientific evidence is concerned. So it's more of a matter of hypothesizing science fiction stuff.
As some scientist said, we will become spaghetti if we went there.
We'll probably become spaghetti before we reach the singularity, because वहाँ पे जो gradient होगा gravitational field का इतना ज़्यादा high होगा that compared to our toes and our head, there will be so much difference in gravitational force. Will be torn apart. Our bodies will be torn apart.
Yes.
But matter particles, once they reach singularity, what happens? Nobody knows. That is the point where our known physical laws, which is basically general theory of relativity, which talks about universe and large scale motion and physical events, that it breaks down at the point of singularity. We cannot predict what happens beyond that. So it just breaks down, we can do nothing about it, or maybe there is some other theory which can predict, which GTR cannot predict what happens at the singularity. So we'll probably never know at this moment, maybe in the future.
But history में तो यही देखा गया कि जितना भी साइंस फिक्शन है उधर से कहीं ना कहीं डेरिवेटिव होता है. मींस फ्यूचर में साइंस फिक्शन फिर बाद में प्रूव हो जाता है. लाइक वीडियो कॉन्फ्रेंसिंग, लाइक वी आर डूइंग राइट नाउ. ये जूल्स वर्न ने 1890s में ही लिख दिया था अपनी बुक में कि ऐसा होगा फ्यूचर में जाके, या टेलीपोर्टेशन एंड ऑल दैट. So somehow maybe in future it will happen.
नहीं, of course वो possibility तो है. So therefore we love to dwell in these ideas.
So, मतलब कैसा फील होता होगा नहीं कि एक physical dimension moving forward, we are not actually moving forward in space but actually in time. How would that even feel?
We are moving forward in time in our day-to-day lives also.
And we move, like we walk forward now. Like we are walking and we are moving not in space, in time.
You see, बहुत सारी हम जब scientific theories को discuss करते हैं, इसमें एक और चीज़ आ जाता है, that is how our brains have developed in the world that we have evolved as human beings. So in the world that we have evolved as Homo sapiens, हमारा जो brain जो develop हुआ है, it has developed in a manner to understand this macroscopic world. That's why people have so much difficulty understanding relativity. They have so much difficulty understanding quantum mechanics, because these theories make predictions that is something very difficult for us to imagine, to visualize, because we have never seen stuff like that. हमारा ब्रेन जो है it has developed in a world which is macroscopic, low velocity, but as you go deep inside into the microscopic domain, quantum mechanical laws predict something very bizarre things to be happening.
Yes, sir.
You travel at very high speeds, if you go to extremely high intensity gravitational fields, then the phenomena that happens are completely, bizarre, but they may be real, because the theories are predicting it, and these theories are so far successful. It's just that we as human beings have difficulty appreciating what's going to happen, कैसा होगा यार, कैसे इसको visualize करें, because to a certain degree मुझे लगता है limitation सिर्फ theories में नहीं है, जितना ज़्यादा limitation हमारे mind में भी है एक तरीके से to visualize what's happening in a world which we have never seen, we have never been to, and it's difficult for us to visualize those things, and I get those kind of questions regarding black holes, regarding quantum mechanics all the time. And I understand where these questions come from. It's because we have grown up with an idea of how the world is, like common sense हमारे अंदर develop हो गया है, but and
Yes.
that world is a very limited world. The actual world have so many extremes out there that we have not seen or experienced.
Yes, you're right. Moving on. अब since we are talking about black holes, so the nearest black hole जो अभी recently मिला है वो 1500 light years दूर है, called unicorn, I guess. So अगर हमको उधर जाना है तो human life में तो I don't think so it's possible to go there. We'll probably die in the spaceship.
Isn't the nearest one Sagittarius A at the center of the galaxy?
No, sir. Recently it is found 1500 light years away, unicorn. अभी कुछ ही मेरे ख्याल से 2 weeks पहले.
1500 light years का मतलब है that you'll have to travel at the speed of light for 1500 years.
For 1500 years. So since that's not possible, theory of relativity doesn't allow it. So but there's a technology by which we can मतलब theory of relativity भी break नहीं होगी, and we can go past the speed of light, called warp drive.
I've heard of it.
So what do you think about it? Is it possible theoretically?
So the idea is, it goes to the second postulate of special relativity, which says that speed of light in vacuum is a constant, and one of the consequences is that bodies that have mass, such as ourselves, we cannot travel at the speed of light. Even when you do velocity transformations in STR, जो तुम लोगों ने किया होगा college के time पे, you can never go to a particular reference frame which is traveling beyond the speed of light.
Yes, sir.
You can always go to speeds less than the speed of light. So in a way, the speed of light is a barrier in terms of speed is concerned. You cannot go beyond the speed of light. You can not even reach the speed of light if you are a human being, somebody that has rest mass. So you always have to limit yourselves to less than that velocity of light. Like, the idea of the speed of light is like it's a speed with respect to your reference, let's suppose the space time, right? So I think warp drive, right? It's called warp drive. Yes. So that idea is that I think space time itself curves around the moving object, and it is the distortion in the space time that is traveling at very, very high velocities. So this limitation of the speed of light is for a person with respect to his reference frame, but this limitation does not apply to the distortions in space-time itself. So it's like, for example, अगर तुम ocean में swimming कर रहे हो, तो you may have a upper limit to the speed at which you can swim. But compared to a swimmer, if somebody is surfing on top of a wave, so the surfer is not really swimming. He is not doing anything. He's not traveling. He is actually on top of a wave, and it is a wave which is traveling. So if you look at the surfers, if you zoom into the picture with respect to a wave, he is static. But if you zoom out, then the wave itself is traveling, right? So it is the distortion in space-time which is taking that spaceship at very, very high velocities. So you as an observer may have a limitation of less than velocities the speed of light with respect to the normal space-time. But the distortion in the space, अगर कोई ऐसा spaceship create करते हो and you create a distortion around that spaceship, and that distortion creates an envelope around you, like some kind of a surfer on top of a wave or something, and that distortion can travel at very, very high speeds, going beyond the light barrier. I think that is the idea.
Yes sir. तो तब I think पहुंच जाएंगे हम लोग.
But I think उसमें challenge ये है कि how to create those kind of distortions and how to make those distortions travel at such high speeds. I mean, something.
Yes, sir. That's exactly what I was gonna ask you. Ki how is it possible? Matlab, how to create those distortions?
Well, distortions in space-time fabric is usually created by gravitational fields, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So there has to be a way of manipulating gravity, which I don't think we have as of this moment. Maybe future में हो सकता है, people, you know, can manipulate gravity and therefore the space-time fabric around them, and they can control it. Right now we don't really control the space-time fabric, right? It's just a consequence of the matter present in your locality. More
Yes, sir.
matter you have, more sort of distortion in the space-time fabric you have.
सर डू यू थिंक ये आइडिया मींस ये जो वॉर्प ड्राइव का आइडिया ये आया है कि स्पेस सिंस इट एक्सपैंड्स मींस फास्टर देन द स्पीड ऑफ लाइट, तो समवन वुड हैव थॉट कि अगर उसी पे चढ़ के जो है चल दे तो हो जाएगा काम.
हाँ, it's like the surfer on top of a wave.
वही
Maybe the idea is simple, but how is that possible? That may be a
Execution
technological challenge in future.
Yes, sir.
If at all it's possible, you know. But as you said, पहले जो हम लोग सोचते थे कि इमेजिन करते थे ऐसा होगा, आज वो हो रहा है.
Yes, yes.
We should not limit our thoughts कि
Yes,
यही
sir.
है.
Since we are not even type 1 civilization at which scale? At the Kardashev. Let me see कौन सा scale था. Scale का नाम याद नहीं आ रहा, but we are not even type 1 civilization. So my idea is कि अगर शायद अगर means हमें type 1 हो गए, वो civilizations होते हैं ना सर कि अगर पूरे planet की energy हम लोग use कर पा रहे हैं तो we are type 1 civilization. अगर जो हमारा स्टार है, जो जैसे कि सन इन दिस केस आर केस, तो अगर उसकी पूरी एनर्जी यूज कर पा रहे हैं तो वी आर टाइप 2 सिविलाइजेशन. पूरे गैलेक्सी की एनर्जी यूज कर पा रहे हैं, टाइप 3 सिविलाइजेशन. तो टू मेक अ वार्प ड्राइव पॉसिबल, डू यू थिंक किस टाइप तक हमको पहुंचना पड़ेगा? टाइप 1, टाइप 2?
We'll have to be first of all, I don't know if it's possible or not. It's a good idea. Probably a highly technically advanced civilization, you know, people who are capable of manipulating planets, at least, you know, stars, manipulating stars.
बाप रे.
Because how would you create that sort of a distortion in space-time? You know, as a scientist,
Yes,
you
sir.
should be able to at least manipulate stars and planets to the minimum. Possibly. I'm only imagining.
Maybe making something really so dense that it distorts the space-time.
Definitely very advanced civilization.
So the Dyson Sphere, the type 2 civilization which mostly use, which will use in future, I guess. So Dyson Sphere की जो theory है, it is like enclosing the whole sun and focusing all the energy to Earth so that we can use it. How do you think we can achieve that? Is that possible?
I don't know. इसका थोड़ा सा मुझे knowledge कम है.
It's very basic sir कि सारा जो रिफ्लेक्टर पैनल्स होते हैं सन के, मतलब पूरी एनर्जी रिफ्लेक्ट कर रहे हैं टुवर्ड्स सन अर्थ, ताकि हम लोग पूरी एनर्जी उसकी यूज कर सकें.
Solar radiation.
Solar radiation.
For what purpose?
For any purpose, for generating energy, for making stuff out of.
So basically, you will have satellites or satellites carrying mirrors at different locations, and then you direct that sunlight to a particular location. Yeah, that's an idea. Yes, because
is it possible? मतलब since sun is very hot ना, तो is there any material which can withstand that hotness?
Yeah, but the heat from the sun is coming primarily from light. So it is the light radiation that is carrying the heat from the sun to the earth. Right? It's not like normal heat कि हम आग के पास बैठे हुए हैं तो वो heat हमें मिल रहा है. That is via the medium between us and the fire. Right? But sun के और earth के बीच में तो ऐसा कोई medium नहीं है ना. So the heat that is coming purely from light radiation.
Yes, sir.
So it depends upon how much light you can accumulate. So the more and more light you can accumulate, more and more energy you can accumulate. But for light, you need more and more surfaces. Bigger and bigger surfaces to absorb or reflect large intensities of light over a longer duration of time to concentrate at a particular point to make it usable. बट आई थिंक आज के टाइम पे we don't even have sufficient solar technology being used all over the world, right? अगर आप दूर के लोकेशन में जाते हो, लद्दाख जाते हो, हिमाचल जाते हो, वहाँ पे होगा somebody may have a solar cell, right? But how many people day to day life में solar cells उतना use करते हैं? ठीक है, तो आई थिंक वहाँ पहुँचने से पहले we will have to solve the problem of using solar cells here on earth and using some of that energy in our day to day life.
Yes. So true, so true. Moving on, Dyson Sphere is very much in the future, but imagination is not limited by anything.
Yes.
As Stephen Hawking said, we are evolved species of monkeys living in a floating in a space on a rock. The heavenly world is very weird and very big and all, but the more weird, as you जैसा आपने पहले कहा कि the more weird world is the quantum world, and the most weirdest phenomena ever observed is quantum entanglement. So do you think it is the key to teleportation?
Teleportation, like कैसे यहाँ पे एक बंदा goes into a door and comes out of it.
Comes out maybe in USA.
Comes out in USA. I don't know. There is उतना ज़्यादा तो I don't think quantum entanglement has to do with transportation of matter as much as it has to do with correlating information at two different points.
If some machine can send my information, my whole body's information somewhere else,
and create a new body there.
Create a new body, new phase, but with the same.
Then there'll be two phases, na?
This one will be gone, na sir. While
so you kill yourself and create yourself anew.
Maybe.
But I think उसमें और भी बड़े challenges आएंगे. I mean, who are you? Are you just the collection of the atoms in your body, or is there something more to it? Are you the collection of the neurons in your brain, and the way those neurons are, arranged together? Is that what phase is? Yeah, there's something more. Because I feel that science में एक बहुत बड़ा challenge जो future में आने वाला है, it is regarding the questions related to consciousness. Till now we have limited our investigation to the physical world. How atoms behave, how molecules behave, how objects behave, how planets behave. We have classified the physical world into these objects, these particles, and we study the interaction between these particles, and we study how these interactions and these particles manifest the chaos in the physical world. Right? But there is another world, जिसको I think there are certain scientists like Roger Penrose, they call it the mental world. और जिसको you can talk of as a consciousness, जहाँ पे investigation उतना नहीं हुआ है. There are big fundamental questions related to consciousness that are unanswered at this point. What is consciousness? What does it mean to be conscious? What does it mean to be me? Who am I? Who are you? मतलब phase जो है वो कौन है? Is the body the phase? Or is there something more to it? Something about the arrangement of the neurons in his brains? And is something more fundamental beyond the arrangement of the neuron in his brains? So I think अगर टेलीपोर्टेशन की बात करेंगे तो एक तो है द चैलेंज ऑफ हाउ टू ट्रांसफर द एनर्जी फ्रॉम पॉइंट ए टू पॉइंट बी. So I think teleportation में you talk about quantum mechanics, but some people also talk about creating some kind of shortcut between space-time, space-time को curve करके you create a shortcut or something like that. Yes. But I think there's a bigger challenge of understanding this. If you do indeed, this is the idea that you destroy one person here and you create the same person here. What does it mean? Who is that person? Is he the collection of the matter in his body, or is there something more? Because we all know that we are conscious. You are conscious. I am conscious, right? And we experience this consciousness day-to-day basis. But there is very little investigation from a scientific viewpoint that has been done in this domain, which I think a lot of people are interested in today. Because physics study करते करते we have reached certain points in quantum mechanics जहाँ पे you have this observer, the role of the observer in terms of the observation is concerned. So there are a lot of scientists who are asking these questions, और मुझे लगता है इन सवालों का जवाब जो है हमें पूरी तरह से चाहिए होगा before we can make those teleportation into reality.
But मेरे से पहले तो किसी एनिमल को भेज के देखेंगे तो
of course स्पेस में भी सबसे पहले इंसान को थोड़ी ना भेजा था. There was a dog by the name of Laika, I think.
Yes, I think so too.
हाँ तो अभी वही होगा, मार्स में भी जाएंगे तो।
इफ यू हैव सीन द गार्डियंस ऑफ द गैलेक्सी,
या
एक्चुअली हाँ उसमें दिखाया गया है कि वो जो डॉग था वो उधर चला गया स्पेस में। उधर म्यूजियम है आर्टिफैक्ट्स का, उधर है वो डॉग। जो कलेक्टर होता है, कलेक्टर द गाय हु कलेक्ट्स एवरीथिंग, तो उसने उसको सेव कर रखा है, अभी भी जिंदा है वो डॉग, ऐसा बताया गया उसमें। मे बी नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन। हाँ तो सिंस इतना फ्यूचर प्रेडिक्ट कर लिया हम लोगों ने, टाइप 1 सिविलाइजेशन एंड ऑल दैट, तो नेक्स्ट सेगमेंट की तरफ बढ़ते हैं। व्हाट इफ मिसचिफ। सेगमेंट का नाम है सर व्हाट इफ मिसचिफ। सो व्हाट इफ अगर प्रेजेंट में अगर कुछ अलग होता तो क्या होता। तो अगर फॉर एग्जांपल सम फ्यूचर, जैसे स्टीफन हॉकिंग ने आई थिंक अपनी बुक में लिखा था कि मैं एक इनविटेशन दे रहा हूँ फ्यूचर टाइम ट्रैवलर्स के लिए, ताकि वो इधर आ सके मेरे पास इस टाइम, बट अनफॉर्चुनेटली कोई आया नहीं था, तो ही वाज वेरी डिसअपॉइंटेड विद दैट। लेकिन अगर क्या हो कि कोई ऐसा एज अ मैनुअल छोड़ जाए हम लोग के लिए, हाउ टू मेक अ टाइम मशीन या समथिंग लाइक दैट, सो व्हाट आर द इम्प्लीकेशन ऑफ दैट। टाइम मशीन तो बन जाएगा, बट व्हाट आर द पैराडॉक्सेस दैट विल कम विद इट, या कौन सी टाइम ट्रैवलिंग थ्योरी उसमें मतलब चलेगी, किसका ज्यादा हाई चांस है।
Well, time travel is a very interesting concept. But well, first of all, keeping aside the fact whether or not it's possible, like whether the physical laws allow time travel to happen in the manner that we are imagining it, keeping that aside. So I think you obviously know what the grandfather paradox is, right?
Yes,
like what is going to happen if you go back in time and kill your own grandfather?
Yes,
then
sir.
Since your grandfather is dead, your dad is not born. And since your dad is not born, you're supposed to not have been born. So that's a paradox, but you're alive.
Yes, sir.
So what is the resolution of that kind of a paradox? So I think that one of the plausible resolutions is the creation of timelines. You know? When you go back in time and you do some significant event, what you do is you do not alter your timeline, but rather you create a new timeline.
Okay.
So if you go back in time and you kill your grandfather, you create a new timeline in which your grandfather is dead, your father is not born, and you are not born, but your timeline is still intact. So there are two timelines now.
So if I go again in the future, where am I going? In the
depends upon which timeline you are going. If you're going to your timeline, that means you are still there. But if you go to the other timeline, it simply means that you have gone from one timeline to the other timeline.
Okay. So
means, understanding.
Yes, I'm getting it.
So the way is to whether or not you are limited to your timeline and you're trying to figure out, can you change your past? Which leads to these paradoxes, and you try to resolve these paradoxes by creating alternate timelines. But then when you create alternate timelines, then you end up creating a large number of different timelines happening simultaneously, one in which you exist, one in which you do not exist, like that. So, parallel worlds, you know.
Parallel worlds, yes, sir.
Yeah, I think this was one of the resolutions in the Avenger Endgame.
Yes, sir.
The Avenger Endgame, they bring the stones from various timelines, and they sort out their own timeline by killing Thanos, and they return it back later on at the end of the movie,
resolving everything. But they created a major timeline in that by releasing Loki. Loki was gone now in that movie by taking that Tesseract. So सीरीज भी आने वाली हॉटस्टार पे उसी बेस की बोल।
इससे रिलेटेड मुझे हाँ एक और चीज अब मैं सोच रहा था इसके बारे में। यूजुअली लोग सोचते हैं ग्रैंडफादर पैराडॉक्स तो थोड़ा सा हैवी हो गया। मोस्ट पीपल क्या सोचते हैं कि मैं पीछे जाऊंगा टाइम पे एंड आई विल बाय स्टॉक्स ऑफ दिस पर्टिकुलर कंपनी, एप्पल का खरीद लिया, गूगल का खरीद लिया, सो दैट व्हेन आई कम बैक टू द फ्यूचर आई एम वेरी रिच, राइट? But if you look at it from the alternate timeline perspective, in your timeline you still have not bought those stocks. You only bought those stocks in another timeline.
Yes, sir.
And in that timeline, who is going to enjoy it? Your other counterpart, because then you have created two different people in two different timelines. So there is a lot of logical sort of inconsistencies that you have to deal with. Even if you do agree to the idea that time travel may be physically possible, उसके बाद भी इन सब चीजों को कैसे तुम्हें बैलेंस करना है, that's a big challenge, you know, and very interesting also.
Like Back to the Future में timeline का means उन्होंने use नहीं किया था. They were like एक ही timeline है, मैं पीछे जाऊंगा कुछ मतलब छेड़छाड़ करूंगा तो मेरे फ्यूचर सेल्फ जो है मतलब वो खुद ही गायब होने लग जाता है. Like Back to the
That is
Future
when
was,
you limit yourself to one timeline. So you killed your
yes,
grandfather, so you vanish.
he was starting to get vanished like Thanos snapped or
But then the
something.
question is, who killed the grandfather in the first place? Because that person doesn't exist anymore.
That's the paradox.
If you look at the grandfather's life, somebody from future came and killed him. Where did that person come from? If the grandfather actually died, that person could not have been born, right? So that's
That
what a
means
paradox.
grandfather didn't die, then he is born, then he go back again and kill, and he's not born, so ये loop चलता रहेगा, I guess. Maybe something, एक मूवी थी उसमें वो एक infinite loop में फंस जाता है. He is living that day every day, same day.
हाँ, yeah. I think I saw a movie like that long time back.
Maybe something like that would happen.
I saw that movie. Series Dark.
Ah,
It's a German, I think, series.
yes, it's German.
And there, what happens is they created, because of some kind of a nuclear blast or something.
Nuclear
created-
fusion, I think. Due to nuclear fusion, there was a microscopic black hole at the center.
And they
Underground.
ended up creating two separate timelines where there are different characters, and these characters can, so you see, interact with each other via some tunnel. They have a very complicated life story.
Yes, sir. Very complicated, actually.
It was very interesting. I'd really recommend people to watch this series. It's a really
मैंने सिर्फ एक
absolutely
ही
awesome
season
series.
देखा था sir, but it is very interesting.
अच्छा, you have seen only season 1.
Yes, sir.
2-3 नहीं देखा है?
नहीं देखा
तो फिर
sir.
मैं spoilers नहीं दूंगा.
No issues,
it
sir.
gets
पहले
very
मिल गए
interesting.
मेरे को. मेरे
अच्छा,
friends
मिल गए?
मान देखा है.
अच्छा.
So it was like something कि वो 13 years ही आगे जा सकते हैं. 13 years आगे जा सकते हैं एक टनल के थ्रू, and 13 years पीछे जा सकते हैं दूसरे टनल के.
हाँ. You really want spoilers?
Sure, sir.
नहीं, you watch it, yaar. It's third season is very interesting. I mean, the way they resolve all these problems.
Okay.
The way they resolve all these problems of somebody is the son of his own grandfather and all this. It's very interesting the way they resolve it.
Okay. I'll just watch and talk to you about it.
Because बहुत सारी movies और serials में क्या होता है, they create lots of questions, they create lots of mystery, but at the end of the day they are unable to resolve it, like how everything fits together.
Yes, sir.
Like, for example, one of the greatest disappointments I had was Game of Thrones. Initially it was such an interesting series and they created so many different plot lines, but by the end of the series they were unable to resolve those questions and resolve those arcs and storylines into one coherent story, right?
Yes, sir.
I don't know why. I mean, it was initially so interesting, but जो resolution नहीं आता है ना, we as a viewer become so disappointed.
Yes, sir.
But Dark में first second series में they create lots and lots of questions and all, but at the end of the series they do resolve everything into one complete story package. So there are no lingering questions as to ये क्यों हुआ वो क्यों हुआ. So that gives a very satisfactory feeling, which that series has.
Like I'm a very big Marvel fan. When I was मतलब मैं बहुत छोटा था तो I used to मैं मुंबई में रहता था सर, तो उधर स्टेशंस पे pirated comics मिलती थी. तो my grandmother used to give me that, क्योंकि local train से 2 to 3 hours हम लोग को travel करना पड़ता था. So she used to give me that and I used to read it all day. And वो कहती थी ये complete करो फिर दूसरी दूंगी. तो मार्वल में मेरा बहुत ज्यादा इंटरेस्ट था. तो seeing Endgame felt like a dream. मैं अपने दो तीन दोस्त के साथ गया था and they were like कि भाई इतना चिल्ला क्यों रहा है कोई भी सीन पे. सुनने तो दे क्या हो रहा है.
I remember in the movie hall जब Thor आता है finally,
वकांडा
bring
में.
me Thanos, and the entire hall was shouting like mad. You feel so great कि finally he's back with his new this thing.
Stormbreaker, yes sir. And
Stormbreaker.
जब Captain America wields the Mjolnir, that was epic.
Yes. So it actually they have, उन लोगों ने बहुत अपना माइंड दिया है स्टोरीज को क्रिएट करने के लिए. आजकल क्या होता है, they make movies and they focus more on the action and the CGI, but they don't give importance to the characters and the stories and the plots. But मुझे लगता है Marvel series ने they have given that importance, because the Captain America, when he holds that Thor, it goes back to the earlier movies where
Age of
the debate was
Ultron.
about who is worthy to hold this,
Yes,
and
sir.
finally Captain America is worthy of holding this. So it creates a kind of connection between different movies that is very
Universes.
satisfying.
Yes, sir. Actually, according to the directors, Age of Ultron में he was worthy too, but और को ताकि disappointment ना हो इसलिए उसने उठाया नहीं.
अच्छा, okay.
Moving on. Okay. The bootstrap paradox. Have you heard of it?
Can you remind me a little bit?
In that कि जैसे कि for example अगर मैं शेक्सपियर होता, मतलब सिंस आई हैव रेड शेक्सपियर, तो मैं अगर पास्ट में जाऊं शेक्सपियर के टाइम पे एंड पब्लिश एवरीथिंग ऑन मेरे नाम से, या पब्लिश आइंस्टाइन्स वर्क अपने नाम से, सो व्हाट हैपेंस, वेयर डिड द इंफॉर्मेशन ओरिजिनली केम फ्रॉम?
Oh yes, I actually got out of my mind. I actually heard this in the Dark series only. Because वहाँ पे they have this remnants, कोई किताब होगा या कुछ होगा जो कोई पीछे दे करके आया था, but now it has created a loop and nobody really knows what is the origin of that that evidence, that
that's
book.
what exactly was bootstrap paradoxes.
I think all of these can be resolved if you have a good understanding of how time flows and if time travel is possible or not, and if, but I think we don't really know so much about all these things. These are just ideas.
Second law of thermodynamics act on it. मतलब कोई अगर बुक है तो अगर वो बार बार एक लूप में फंसी हुई है बुक, तो इट शुड मतलब वेयर आउट ना, एट सम पॉइंट इतनी फट जानी चाहिए वो कि वो रिस्टोर भी ना हो सके, तो एक टाइम आएगा लूप एंड होगा करके.
तो उस बुक का अपना एक टाइमलाइन होगा, इट विल हैव अ सेपरेट टाइमलाइन.
हाँ,
and in that timeline it will be very very advanced. Right, but in the timeline of the world, not that advanced.
Okay. Sir, your screen just froze.
Just one sec.
It's okay, sir. You're looking very good, by the way.
Thank you. You are also looking fine.
Thank you, sir. Next question. Have you heard about Area 51?
Yeah. There
the
are so many
controversial place on Earth. Yes, sir. The controversial place on Earth.
Where they're supposed to be experimenting with aliens and stuff like that.
Alien and UFOs. According to a scientist who used to work in Area 51, उधर हुआ ये था, एक scientist ने एक statement दिया था, एक interview type का, and he was like, there is a new element which can defy gravity, and after I think 2 to 3 months, the scientist discovered a new element, 115, means unpentium on the periodic table. So do you think the links are connected?
I don't actually, I am not so learned about this. I mean, मैंने देखा है, थोड़ा बहुत सुना भी है regarding this, but
what if it is real? How do you think it would work? मतलब, how does something defy gravity? How can an element defy gravity?
Well, element means it's made up of matter. Protons, neutrons.
Yes, sir.
So they interact in the same way that other particles like electrons, protons, neutrons interact with gravity.
Yes.
So I don't think that any chemical composition of electrons and protons and neutrons and certain number of this thing can actually affect gravity, because they are made up of those same particles whose behavior with gravity we already know. तो अगर ग्रेविटी किसी डिफाई ग्रेविटी या ऐसा कुछ होगा, तो इट मे हैव टू बी अ डिफरेंट काइंड ऑफ मैटर. Cannot be an element made up of. Element का मतलब क्या होता है? Element का मतलब होता है you have a certain number of protons, certain number of neutrons, and around it a certain number of electrons.
Yes, sir.
These are particles that we have studied. We know that how they interact via gravity, how they interact via weak interaction, how they interact via strong interaction, how they interact via all these 4 fundamental forces, right? So उससे अगर तुम कोई नया एलिमेंट बनाते हो and then you say okay that defies gravity, that seems little not unlikely.
Possible. Because it is matter, it should obey the
ultimately law. It's matter that we already know and we have studied. Yes, so agar koi aisa hoga bhi, there is a possibility that it may have to be some It may have to be something beyond the matter that we already know.
Non-baryonic matter, I think.
Something that we have not studied yet.
Yes, sir. Okay, so 115 is just another controversy, I guess.
I don't even know what's their reasoning behind it. Or मैं तो बस ये कह रहा हूँ from a scientific perspective.
Yes,
we
sir.
know how matter behaves with gravity. If something
There are a
defies
lot
gravity,
of
it has to be
scientists
something
claiming
else.
stuff like that. आपने history TV 18 after 10 देखा है कभी?
History?
History TV 18 channel.
बचपन actually I don't have TV.
Me neither.
मैं पूरे जॉब जब से कर रहा हूँ, जब मैंने मास्टर्स किया, जब मैंने कॉलेज किया, मैं टीवी देखा ही नहीं. स्कूल में जब था, घर पे था, जब स्कूल में था 12th तक, तब तक टीवी था. सो वी हैड डिस्कवरी चैनल एंड हिस्ट्री चैनल. आफ्टर दैट कॉलेज में कभी जैसे कॉमन रूम में कोई मूवी देख लिया. अभी तो टीवी है ही नहीं, कभी कोई सीरीज देख लेता हूँ या मूवी देख लेता हूँ, बट टीवी नहीं है. सो आजकल क्या होता नहीं पता. उस टाइम पे होता था हिस्ट्री में एलियंस का.
yes sir. वो सुबह 12 बजे they were like pyramids are made by ancient humans and 10 बजे के बाद like they are made by aliens. So
this is which theory? This is called the I forgot the name. That life came to Earth from beyond.
Meteor, yes sir.
Like
I have heard that theory as well.
I think इसके ऊपर कोई मूवी भी बना है. I forgot the name of the movie. There are some people who think that life came from beyond Earth and then it evolved here and did all these things. I don't know.
How is that possible, sir?
See, even if you do agree for a while to the idea that life may have come from beyond, the question still remains where life originated there in the first place. So the scientific questions are still valid.
Like in 11th, 12th biology, we have studied that due to severe conditions, protein and all interacted and life came out. Like boom.
Amino acids were created and their highly complex molecules were created that created these chains where one and then the other molecules started competing with them in terms of resources, and they become more and more complicated and they become one cell and then become multi-cell and then the organisms. The whole story. It's very interesting.
Do you watch Veritasium?
Absolutely, I am a fan of that channel.
I think कल या आज ही एक new video डाला है Veritasium ने. Have you watched?
I saw half of that video actually. मेरे पास time नहीं. There was a very lengthy video, half an hour video. He was talking about sets, right? Mathematics.
Yes, sir.
He was talking about sets and infinities and how some infinities are not the same as other infinities. Something like that.
मतलब I didn't get the whole idea. मतलब एक हल्का सा idea है, but not totally. When you watch it, do let me know what.
मैंने पूरा देखा नहीं है. 10-15 minutes देखा, उसके बाद I had to do some work. So
okay.
वो unfinished है.
For the first time video समझ में नहीं आया कोई, मतलब बाकी मेरे को आ जाता था, but first time मेरे को आया नहीं. It was very complicated actually.
But he makes some excellent videos. I'm really a fan of it. I have been following him since many years. He makes some really good videos.
Actually, foreign में people who are not science background, वो लोग भी देखते हैं and they enjoy. But India में ऐसा नहीं है. I don't know why. Here there are stereotypes like science वाले science ही देखेंगे, commerce वाले commerce ही देखेंगे, arts वाले arts करेंगे. So I don't know. I'm just trying to break those stereotypes through my YouTube channel. I make stuff on everything, literally everything. जो मेरे को दिखता है, जो मैं study करता हूँ, and I'm like हाँ ये interesting है तो बताया जाए.
बट आई थिंक लोगों में इंटरेस्ट है. इंडिया में भी ऐसा नहीं है. साइंटिफिक कॉन्सेप्ट से रिलेटेड फिजिक्स में क्या हो रहा है, रिसर्च में क्या हो रहा है, यू नो, इन टर्म्स ऑफ डिफरेंट काइंड्स ऑफ थिंग्स दैट आर हैपनिंग इन द यूनिवर्स, देयर इज़ अ लॉट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट. ऐसा है कि बहुत लोग फिजिक्स से नहीं पढ़ते बिकॉज ऑफ दैट्स अ करियर डिसीजन. कुछ लोग बायोलॉजी में चले जाते हैं, कुछ लोग आर्ट्स में, कुछ लोग दूसरे फील्ड्स में चले जाते हैं. दैट इज़ अ करियर डिसीजन. बट मुझे लगता है एज फार एज एवरी ह्यूमन बीइंग has a curiosity about how the world works, you know, to a certain extent, how everything operates, you know, what's out there, they all have these questions. So if you make a good channel where you answer those questions in a manner that they can understand, that even if they are not skilled in the mathematics, even if they are not skilled in terms of that scientists use, you can convey that information then I'm 100% sure that people are going to give you positive responses to the channel.
Like my next video idea is like its title would be Let's Prove Newton Wrong. तो उसमें मैं थोड़ा सा डेमोन्स्ट्रेशन करूंगा यंग्स डबल स्लिट एक्सपेरिमेंट का to prove his corpuscular theory wrong. So
interference, which basically tells us wave theory of light.
Yes sir. So maybe people will like it. I don't know.
नहीं, मुझे तो लगता है that people do generally are curious about these ideas. चाहे वो कोई भी हो, इंडिया से हो या बाहर से हो, everybody is curious to know how the world works. But the thing is, it as an educator, so you are making a video, it's your responsibility to make sure that it is understandable, it is presented in the right manner. देखो, स्टीफन हॉकिंग ने कहा था that it's a duty of every scientist to explain things in a manner that even a child can understand it. So अगर कोई वीडियो या कोई टॉपिक तुम्हें समझ में नहीं आ रहा है, तो आई थिंक अ लार्ज रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी फॉल्स ऑन द शोल्डर ऑफ द टीचर और द प्रेजेंटर. They are not able to convey it in a manner that somebody who is not technically proficient is unable to understand it. So I think it falls on your shoulders as well as on the shoulders of all teachers and educators to convey the truth behind these ideas in a manner that even a layman or a child can understand, appreciate, and be passionate about it. That's ultimately the main goal, na? It's not about remembering terms and equations. It's about feeling passionate about okay, these ideas and how these ideas manifest into reality.
Yes sir. Just like Walter Levin said ki the teachers who make physics boring are criminals.
I think so. How can you make physics boring? I mean, there is so much to it.
You haven't met my university professors then. I hope they are not watching this. They'll kill me.
I think it requires, as a teacher मैंने भी realize किया है, कि it requires a combination of not only the knowledge of the subject but also presentation skills, communication skills, having a little bit of a rapport with your viewers or your students. तो बहुत जो universities में teachers होते हैं, many of them are good in their research field. They have published excellent papers and all. But as far as teaching and being a communicator is concerned, वहाँ थोड़ा सा वो fail हो जाते हैं. तो ऐसा नहीं कि they are not skilled, they're skilled, but communication के जो field है उसमें थोड़ा सा they fall a little bit back and they are unable to convey the passion that they themselves may feel for the subject to the viewers.
Yes sir.
ऐसा होता है यार, it happens.
Yes, there are times.
But we are lucky that we are living in a world of the internet where I think Veritasium, he is from Australia, I think.
Yes sir, from Australia.
So there are so many great YouTubers out there. I also follow this mathematics channel, 3 Blue 1 Brown.
3 Blue 1 Brown, yes sir.
He makes such excellent videos. There are many such
very much sir.
Yeah, Vsauce and all. So many great channels are out there, and we as a human population are getting the best of the best. पहले क्या होता था, कोई अच्छा टीचर होगा तो वो सिर्फ 10-20-100 लोगों को पढ़ाएगा, right?
Yes.
Now they are teaching millions and millions of people. So in a way, our generation is very lucky that we get access to such high quality communicators and educators. Even if there is one person in the entire world, he can help so many people out there because of the medium of the internet.
Yes sir. Language is also a barrier sir in that. Some students can't understand English now, so we as an Indian YouTubers have to take care of that, I think.
That's always a challenge. That's always a challenge. Hindi, English, there are local languages also जिसमें viewers are proficient. So that's always a challenge. I myself face that particular challenge when many of my students request me to use different languages. But वो एक थोड़ा सा क्या होता है, you have to balance it out according to your this thing. So you have to understand where your viewers are. Yes. So if you want to if your viewers are Hindi speaking, then you make for Hindi speaking. If your viewers are, let's suppose जो Western channels है, their viewers are mostly English speaking, right? So I am also sure that Spanish या Chinese world में भी ऐसे YouTubers होंगे who are making those kind of videos.
Yes sir.
I once read an article कि कोरिया में बहुत सारे teachers हैं who make videos on Korean language are teaching students. They are like extremely popular there. I think that depends. But ऐसा है कि with time we are getting more and more creators. with time we are getting more and more creators. All these people who are capable will rise up to the occasion, whichever demographic you're talking about, and they will somehow, I think, make the world only better in terms of education.
Yes, sir. It all started due to Geo, I think. It revolutionized
India mein.
Indian internet.
India mein, yes.
Yes, sir. Now everybody, literally every person has at least 1 GB of data per day. Pehle, if you remember, it would cost like 1200 rupees for 1 GB data.
Earlier it was very costly. मुझे याद है like 10-15 साल पहले 30 मैसेजेस खरीदने के लिए हमें वाउचर खरीदना पड़ता था. अभी तो मैसेज कोई करता नहीं, everybody is on WhatsApp or something.
Yes, sir.
But I think this is only going to improve because I think अभी Elon Musk is also trying to come up with that Starlink, where using satellites they are going to provide internet connectivity to remote areas.
Yes, sir.
So things are only going to become better. The world is going to be only more and more connected.
Yes, sir.
So the challenge today is not that you don't have access to resources. The challenge today is how to filter out what you want.
How much curiosity you have.
Yes, how to use the information available for your benefit.
Yes, sir. Now, since we are talking about progress, the main barrier for our progress is the crisis going on. Other than pandemic, in future, global warming and all these issues are there. How do you think a normal human being, like a student like me, can tackle? मतलब कैसे छोटे-छोटे steps से how can I help in facing this problem? Yeah, helping.
You're talking about the pandemic.
Not pandemics, about global warming, about the crisis.
About climate change you're talking about.
Yes, sir, climate change.
Well, you see, the climate change and global warming issues has to do a lot with industrialization, creation of, as I said, when I was in school, I used to watch Discovery Channel. So वहाँ पे एक ad आता था. I used to remember this ad. It was regarding poaching, कि जानवरों को कैसे मारते हैं for their horns, for their teeth, and उस horn या teeth से they end up making jewelry or something like that. So the entire idea of the ad was that when the buying stops, the killing can too.
Right.
And I have found that is such an excellent message in so many things. Like दुनिया का जो सिस्टम है, जो मार्केट इकोनॉमी, हु आर ड्राइविंग वो द इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन में जिस तरह के जो गैसेस क्रिएट हो रहे हैं, जिस प्रोडक्ट्स क्रिएट करने के टाइम पे, हु आर ड्राइविंग? द कंज्यूमर्स आर ड्राइविंग इट, राइट?
Yes, sir.
We as a consumer, if we are going to buy plastic over and over again, और फिर हम किसी और को ब्लेम कर रहे हैं कि ग्लोबल वार्मिंग क्यों कर रहे हो, तो that's a little bit doesn't fit.
Unfit, yes, sir.
Yeah, so we have to live a life where we understand the consequences of our actions of buying certain kinds of products, and using maybe reusing paper bags. अभी हम लोग बाहर जाते हैं तो mostly paper bags मिलता है, which is a good thing, instead of this. So small things that you do, because at the end of the day, it is the market economy which is driving, it is the industrialization in different countries which is driving the acceleration towards this kind of climate change. So the only way we can contribute is to change our consumption of those things that correlate to global climate change and all these things.
Yes, sir. Sure, sir.
So it's like there is a parody in the social media, like people are using iPhones and they're saying stop capitalism or something like that. So we cannot be so disconnected. Our actions have consequences. जो हम करते हैं, that reflect as consequences in the large scale. So if we as an individual can make small good decisions, or we can influence 4 people around us, but that will have an exponential effect in changing society. That's the only way to do it.
Like things I do, जो मुझे लगता है कि it will affect in the long run. जब भी मैं मार्केट जाता हूँ तो अपना खुद का बैग लेके जाता हूँ.
That's very good.
Yes, that's good. And I've seen कि there are edible cutlery available now. मतलब चम्मच से खाओ फिर चम्मच को भी खा जाओ.
अच्छा, okay.
And it has a shelf life of 8 months or something. So it's very unique approach towards plastic waste.
ओके, बट आई थिंक इस फील्ड में थोड़ा सा एक और एडवांसमेंट हो रहा है. पीपल आर ट्राइंग टू बिल्ड बायोडिग्रेडेबल मटेरियल दैट कैन बिहेव लाइक प्लास्टिक एंड ऑल.
यस सर.
तो आई होप दिस काइंड ऑफ एडवांसमेंट्स कैन हेल्प इन द फ्यूचर. और एक और चीज़ हो रहा है दैट रिगार्डिंग लाइक पेट्रोल एंड ऑल. We are moving towards a world in which people are going to use electric cars more and more.
Yes, Tesla.
Yeah, so that is a good change that is happening, I think.
Yes sir. Moving on to our next question. Do you like to have some rapid fire questions, sir? Means yes or no wale. If you want to explain, you can explain too, but if not, yes or no is that.
Sure, let me try.
Okay sir, first question. Can fire and air have shadows?
Fire doesn't have a shadow. Air, I don't think depends upon the density. Like if you have fog or something and you give light from one end, so there may be a little bit of a shadow there on the other side. So it depends upon the materials in the air.
Like आपने वो देखा होगा कि जब कोई चीज तली जाती है पड़े से, ऐसा जलेबी जब तली जाती है तो ऊपर जो एयर जाती है, if you shine a light or something, then नीचे shadow बनेगा moving upward.
हाँ, yes. So
just like you said, depends on the density.
Yeah, depends upon the materials, the composition of that particular air.
Yes sir. Can gold be created by other elements?
You mean chemical reactions or nuclear processes?
Anything sir.
well, chemical reactions से नया एलिमेंट तो क्रिएट नहीं होता है.
Yes, इलेक्ट्रॉन का शिफ्टिंग है वो.
इलेक्ट्रॉन का शिफ्टिंग होता है, आउटर मोस्ट इलेक्ट्रॉन्स का चेंजेस होता है. नया एलिमेंट कैन नॉट बी क्रिएटेड बाय केमिकल प्रोसेसेस, दे कैन बी क्रिएटेड बाय न्यूक्लियर प्रोसेसेस, रेडियोएक्टिव प्रोसेसेस, जहाँ पे देयर इज अ चेंज, ट्रांसम्यूटेशन ऑफ द एलिमेंट्स इटसेल्फ इज हैपनिंग.
Yes sir.
Number of protons, number of neutrons are changing. तब हो सकता है you figure out a way, but otherwise I don't think from chemical processes.
Is it possible in right now, मतलब अभी के टेक्नोलॉजी से?
I don't know. It depends upon if you can figure out you see there are these radioactive series in which you go one element decays into another. So if there is a series which
ultimately leads to gold,
then maybe I don't know exactly. So this is
gold is a very stable sir, so maybe in future we predicted a highly radioactive material, so it decays into gold or something.
Maybe
एक्चुअली ये क्वेश्चंस जो है मेरे सब्सक्राइबर्स ने भेजे थे, जो मैंने पोल नहीं किया था इंस्टाग्राम पे.
अच्छा, ऑलराइट, ओके.
तो दे आर लाइक
ओनली टू प्रोसेसेस आर देयर. वन इज रेडियोएक्टिव सीरीज में अगर कोई सीरीज में कोई डीके हो करके इट स्टॉप्स एट गोल्ड, दैट्स वन वे. या मे बी you create some kind of a setup where you bombard different particles and fuse them together to create a composite nuclei.
Yes,
those are the two processes which may be possible.
Okay sir, they were like all went crazy, ऐसा क्वेश्चन पे क्वेश्चन भेज रहे हैं इंस्टाग्राम पे डीएम
कर. That's great.
वैसे कभी रिएक्ट नहीं करते मेरे पोस्ट वगैरह पे, बट आपका पहले हो सकता है उन्होंने प्रोफाइल स्टॉक किया फिर मेरे को भेजा.
Okay, but maybe. I don't know. Let's see the questions.
Can one bit of light bounce off another bit of light?
The one photon bouncing against another.
Like photoelectric effect happens between electron and photon. Can that happen between two photons?
See, if you look at it from a wave point of view, ऐसा तो नहीं होता है. Wave point of view, how waves interact is that you get interference.
Yes sir.
So when you see from the wave perspective of if light if you think of light as consisting of electromagnetic oscillations, then they end up interfering with each other, creating a resultant wave.
Okay, yes sir.
It will have a certain kind of amplitudes you can calculate. I don't know of any experiments where photons as a particles are bouncing off other photons. I mean, I know of experiments where photons are bouncing off electrons, let's suppose. Photoelectric effect हो गया, quantum effect हो गया. But I don't know, I have not seen any such experiment where photons bouncing off photons.
Moving on then, can sound wave generate heat?
Sound wave generate heat? Yeah, why not?
It is a form of energy, so I
it's a
think
form of energy, yes.
it can be converted
Like
into
sounds is basically these vibrations in air where you have pressure, and then pressure is released, and these pressure regions travel through space, right? And when the let's suppose gets absorbed by surface, the energy may get converted to vibrations in the atoms and molecules of that surface.
Okay.
So tab kya hoga? Those atoms and molecules will start vibrating.
Yes, sir.
Right. What does that vibration mean? It means increase in the thermal energy of the system. Sound
Yes,
create
sir.
kab hota hai? You have a mic, or you have a speaker. Speaker mein there is a thin film, and then this thin film vibrates, right? And these vibrations travel through the air, and then they get absorbed in some surface. So of course it's possible.
Okay, then yes, for this, can the decay half-life of a radioactive material be changed?
No.
It is independent of, I think, it is independent of everything.
It is dependent on the characteristics of the nucleus. It is dependent on the characteristics of the nucleus. You see, radioactivity कैसे होता है? कोई एक heavy nuclei है, उसके अंदर से कोई particle quantum tunnel करके out हो जाता है. So some of you in college may have studied the Gamow theory of alpha decay.
Yes,
where
sir,
you
yes,
have a
sir.
larger nucleus and you have an alpha particle inside trying to get out, and there's a very small probability that it can get out of it.
Okay.
Right. And you can calculate the half-life from the kinetic energy of the alpha particle. So the half-life has, as much as I can remember right now, the half-life is very much a characteristic of the nuclear composition itself. So it's I don't think it can be manipulated on any chemical level or anything. You cannot increase pressure, temperature, density to change the half-life. Use pressure, temperature, density, light, all these things are these macroscopic events taking place. But the radioactivity is fundamentally a nuclear event. So that nuclear event is not affected by these heat or pressure or density or all these things. No.
Yes, sir. So no for this, I guess. I have seen the video which you are telling on your YouTube channel. उसी से मेरे को समझ में आया था. I was having a huge doubt क्या है ये, बुक में समझ ही नहीं आ रहा था. Then saw your video and I was like, oh my god, इतना आसान था तो क्यों नहीं आ रहा था मुझे. You explained it very well, sir, in that video.
Yeah, okay. Thank
you. With the proper diagrams and all.
Yeah, it's ultimately a quantum tunneling phenomenon, where a particle inside the nucleus has a probability of coming out of it, and therefore radioactivity itself is a probabilistic event. It's not a classical deterministic event. It's not a chemical event. It's a probabilistic event. You cannot predict what's going to happen to one nucleus. Is it going to undergo decay or not? But you can predict what's going to happen to, let's suppose, 100 nuclei. You can never point out consa nucleus will undergo radioactive decay, but you can only say, okay, certain number of these nuclei out of this entire composite may undergo decay in a certain period of time. So it has to do with probability.
The best portion of your video was like a video series where you made that arrow to demonstrate the angular momentum.
Oh, okay. Quantization of angular momentum.
Yes.
That is a topic, that is a topic that I feel many students have difficulty, especially the space quantization part.
Yes, sir.
Like people understand the magnitude quantization, that the magnitude of angular momentum can have only discrete values.
Yes,
but people have difficulty of understanding space quantization. So when I was doing a series on nuclear physics, I realized that, okay, when I was going to talk about nuclear moment and magnetic moment, all these things, so space quantization bhi aa jata hai usme. You know, so space quantization क्या होता है कि space में जो है there are certain orientations which the particle can take.
Yes, sir.
तो उसके लिए visualization थोड़ा important हो जाता है. Board में जो है you draw a 2D diagram, but what's happening is a 3D phenomenon.
Yes, sir.
तो इसलिए मैंने क्या किया था, मैंने एक शाम पहले मैंने decide किया I'm going to make a 3D structure and then I'm going to show that in the video, and then maybe that will help people understand. Because once you understand it, na, it becomes very easy. But if you don't understand it, it becomes very difficult.
Yes, sir. फिर रटना ही पड़ जाता है ultimately उसको.
हाँ, but otherwise it's a very simple concept. It's just that the quantization is both directed in space as well as in magnitude.
Yes, sir. Moving on to our next question. Can you make a shock wave of light by breaking the light barrier, just like supersonic airplanes break the sound barrier?
That goes back to whether or not you can cross the light barrier, which is not possible right now.
Okay, so no then.
But it can happen in a medium.
That's exactly what I was.
It cannot happen in a vacuum. It can happen in a medium, because in a medium, light does not travel at the speed of light, which is c.
Mhm.
In a medium, light travels at the speed of c upon n, which is the refractive index.
Yes, sir.
So there is a possibility of particles traveling at speeds greater than the speed of light in that medium,
Medium. Yes, sir.
and that phenomena is known as Cherenkov radiation.
हाँ, राइट राइट, मेरे को आज भी उसमें बहुत ज्यादा डाउट है.
I made a video on that also.
Really?
Yes.
हाँ, मैं देखा ही नहीं, मैं अभी देखूंगा इसके बाद. पहले
So sometimes electrons which are emitted during in nuclear fusion these things events, nuclear processes, they can travel at very very high speeds through a medium, and sometimes they can go beyond the speed of the light in that medium, which is c upon n. So ऐसे situation में they end up creating what is known as Cherenkov radiation, which is basically a shock wave created by the constructive interference of these waves through that particular medium.
Okay.
तुमने एक देखा होगा जब भी न्यूक्लियर रिएक्टर्स का फोटो होता है, there is a bluish halo.
हाँ.
That bluish halo is Cherenkov radiation.
Okay, means the particles emitting out across the speed of light in that medium, and hence sci-fi movies में बहुत दिखाते हैं वो.
हाँ, जैसे जब कोई एक जेट होता है, साउंड के स्पीड से ज़्यादा तेज़ी से जाता है, they end up creating the sonic boom. You know, so the same kind of event happens for electromagnetic radiation, but in, let's suppose, nuclear reactors, which is what Cherenkov radiation is.
वो मूवी में बहुत अच्छा दिखाया गया है. आयरन मैन when goes beyond the sound barrier, there's like boom. Next question. Do atoms ever actually touch each other?
No.
We don't even touch, na sir.
If my hand is touching the other hand, it feels like that one surface is touching the other surface. But if you zoom into it at a microscopic level, the atoms of the skin layer of this hand and the atoms of the skin layer of this hand come very close. But then there is a Coulombic repulsion that is happening, which keeps them at a certain very very tiny distances of maybe a couple of femtometers, you know.
Okay.
और एटम्स का मतलब क्या है? एक तो अंदर तुम्हारे पास न्यूक्लियस है और बाहर तुम्हारे पास बहुत सारे इलेक्ट्रॉन्स है, इलेक्ट्रॉन क्लाउड्स है. सो इलेक्ट्रॉन क्लाउड ऑफ वन एटम इज इंटरैक्टिंग विद द इलेक्ट्रॉन क्लाउड ऑफ अनदर एटम, एंड देयर इज अ सर्टेन अमाउंट ऑफ Coulombic repulsion that is happening. So only when you zoom into it to a very very tiny region can you actually see, okay, they're not really touching in the sense of the touching. Nothing really touches, you know. Particles come close and then they go away, interact and they go away. Nothing really touches.
I saw meme, sir. एक स्टूडेंट होता है, वो अपने टीचर के लैपटॉप में मतलब कुछ कर रहा होता है, तो फिजिक्स टीचर इज लाइक, हाउ डेयर यू टच माय लैपटॉप. तो ही इज लाइक, आई नेवर रियली टच्ड इट because of the Coulombic interaction.
I only interacted with the screen of your laptop.
Okay. So next question. Does a source of electricity ever run out of electrons?
No. Electricity is just slight movement of electrons one after another.
Yes, sir.
It does not mean that electrons are not present.
The amount of electron leaving is equals to the amount of electron entering.
Imagine that you are in a long queue. सिनेमा हॉल में गए, टिकट करने के लिए बहुत लंबा क्यू है, तो पीछे से एक बंदे ने धक्का दिया, तो तुमने धक्का आगे को दिया, उसने धक्का आगे को दिया, तो जो इंसान है वो मूव नहीं कर रहा उतना जितना ये धक्का मूव कर रहा है.
Yes, sir.
So when people think of electricity, they have this misconception that it's an electron traveling from point A to point B. No, it's not an electron traveling from point A to point B. It's an electron at point A. Interacting with the next electron, which interacting with the other next like that. So it's this disturbance that is traveling through region, through space.
Sometimes nothing travels, like in case of semiconductors, holes, but still electricity is traveling.
So the absence of that thing is
yes, sir. Next question. What does an atom have a color?
So the idea of color goes back to so many things. It has to do with light and how lights are going to, you know, fall onto our retina and create a certain kind of impression. Okay. I think that the normal electromagnetic spectrum that we have, which is somewhere around 6,000 to 9,000 angstroms.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I don't think that you can use those to resolve into an atom.
Okay.
So if you because if you want to resolve, if you want to look at a particular object, then the wave that you use must, the size of that particular wavefront, one wavefront must be smaller than the size of that particular object. So atoms are even smaller than those wavelengths.
Yes, sir.
So when you actually try to interact with an atom, you must use wavelengths which are very, very, very small. So
That's
that
why
doesn't
that's
fall in the
microscope.
visible spectrum anymore. So the whole idea of color doesn't make sense in that level.
That's why
I don't think that there is a microscope that has actually been able to resolve electron. There are scanning tunneling microscopes, but they don't use the light as a way to resolve. They kind of probe the surface.
Okay.
So तो atoms में जो भी तुम्हारे CBSE टेक्स्ट बुक में कहीं पे एटम दिख रहा है, येलो कलर, रेड कलर, वो रियल कलर नहीं है. That is just software giving some color to it.
I think you figured out कि किसी 12th के बच्चे ने क्वेश्चन पूछा है.
हाँ, I know CBSE NCERT की किताब में होगा कि स्कैनिंग टनलिंग का देखो, ये गोल्ड फॉइल है, ये सारे एटम है. That's not real color. That's just software ने वो कलर दिया हुआ. And scanning tunneling में तो लाइट यूज ही नहीं करते हैं. They use a probe, and then that probe basically goes like this, and they try to go up and down. Basically, there's an electron tunneling through that probe to the surface, and by looking at the tunneling current, they're trying to figure out कि इसका height कितना होगा, height कैसे change हो रहा है, and then they try to map out that region, and that mapping out of the region gives you an idea about the distribution of the atoms.
Just like blind people making sculptures by stone, by touching, by clay.
Exactly. So in STM, they are not even using light. They are using current to probe the surface at a very small distance.
That's very smart. Actually, there was an app, a game called Quantum Mechanics. अभी तो बंद हो गया for some reason. उसमें quantum problems जो होती है, tunneling problems होती हैं, उसको मतलब दिया जाता है visually, ताकि देखा जाए लोग कैसे उसको मतलब resolve कर रहे हैं. Normal लोग. तो नॉर्मल लोग जो रेजोल्यूशन करेंगे यूजिंग मैथमेटिक्स, दे विल ट्राई टू इम्पोज ऑन इट. तो इट वाज एन इनिशिएटिव बाय आई डोंट नो कैलिफोर्निया यूनिवर्सिटी टू मेक सच एन ऐप टू इन्वॉल्व एवरीडे पीपल इन क्वांटम मैकेनिक्स.
ओके,
अभी तो बंद हो गया ऐप, प्ले स्टोर पे भी नहीं मिल रहा. मे बी इट वाज अ बेटा टेस्ट. नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन, इज देयर ऑर्डर इन chaos? It is a good question.
Yeah, there is order everywhere.
There is order. Is chaos predictable?
See, everything that we see around us is ordered, right? I mean, it depends upon how you look at the question. You look at it from a philosophical point of view, then yes, there is order, there is planets, there is solar system, there is my laptop, there is my mouse. All of these are ordered things. Right? So, but to create that order, some energy has to be used, and to
Okay.
Order basically matlab you want to predict what's happening.
Maybe that's what the question meant, I think.
I think there is a balance of order and chaos everywhere. There is an element of unpredictability that happens. Like for example, I recently did an discussion on double pendulum. The double pendulum is a very famous example of chaotic systems. Chaos ka meaning kya hota hai? When you give a small difference in the initial configuration, then the resultant state of the system is very, very different. So the entire system is still predictable, it is still deterministic, but the entire system are two different same system having two different initial conditions will have vastly different consequences. So this goes to the idea of how fluttering of one butterfly can lead to tornadoes in some other region, because systems are very much sensitive to initial conditions. So the idea of chaos comes basically from a lack of determining the initial conditions to the nth decimal place,
Yes, sir.
And so there is a degree of chaos everywhere, because we'll never be 100% precise of what is the state of a system.
Yes, sir. That answers that, I think. Next question. Does time go faster at the top of a building compared to the bottom?
I don't think that building के level पे इतना ज़्यादा difference होता है.
But still, there's some minute difference, no?
See, for example, astronauts which are traveling in the International Space Station for 6 months, they would have been younger by 0.0005 seconds or something like that.
Oh.
It's very, very, very tiny.
Mhm.
So the differences in the gravitational field must be very, very high for there to be any significant changes in the time experienced by two persons.
Just like
if you talk about, yeah, but if you talk about Earth's gravity is not that very strong, right? If you talk about black holes are extremely dense stars, तब वहाँ पे अगर तुम्हारा कोई हाइट का डिफरेंस है तो वहाँ पे देयर मे बी अ सिग्निफिकेंट डिफरेंस. तो somebody who is at a particular height may experience or maybe younger by a few couple of seconds compared to somebody who is below him at a lower height, you know.
Yes.
So time dilation actually effects are the result of two things. It is in STR it has to do with motion. In GTR it has to do with where you are at the particular gravitational field. So far you are from it and nearer you are to it, that can create differences in how you perceive time. But that only happens where extreme gravitational effects are there.
Yes, sir. That was a very emotional scene in Interstellar. He goes down for a couple of hours and comes up and sees
his daughter is old.
I was like shocked. Arey, ye kya ho gaya? He's like, it's been 23 years. I gave up all the hopes.
But she says, no, my father promised.
Yes, sir. Actually, she responded in the last video just because क्योंकि उसके father ने कहा था कि maybe जब मैं वापस आऊँ तो मेरे age की होगी. तो जब वो उसके age की हो जाती है तो she made a video. That was heartbreaking. Moving on to the next question. How can a clear object be transparent and visible at the same time?
Because it's not 100% transparent, no?
Maybe using a different wavelength of light?
Yeah, that's possible. So it depends upon how light interacts with it. So if all the light falling on that surface penetrates through, there is zero reflection, zero refraction, nothing is happening, so it's clearly invisible. But ऐसा तो होता नहीं ना. There is always a small percentage of light that may get scattered, and a refraction always gives you an idea about, okay, there is something there.
Yes, sir.
Because light direction has changed.
Actually, when I went to see Infinity War, तो मैं 3D में देखने गया था, and somehow those 3D glasses ended up in my home, and then I went to watch Endgame, and once again somehow those 3D glasses ended up in my home. तो मैंने देखा सर कि looking through one 3D glass to another, अगर लेफ्ट से देखो तो उसका राइट वाला ब्लैकिश दिखाई देता है, और इधर राइट से देखो तो उसका लेफ्ट वाला ब्लैकिश दिखाई देता है. सो हाउ डज दैट हैपन? आई नो इट हैज
उसका पोलराइजर भी था.
पोलराइजेशन, यस सर. इट हैज अ लेफ्ट, वन इज लेफ्ट पोलराइजर एंड लेफ्ट सर्कुलर.
प्रोबेबली दैट हैज समथिंग टू डू विद इट.
यस सर, राइट सर्कुलर.
मैलेस लॉ पढ़ा होगा 12th में.
Yes, yes, sir.
पर्टिकुलर एंगल पे लाइट इंटेंसिटी डिक्रीज हो जाता है. तो
yes, sir. तो लेफ्ट, आई थिंक लेफ्ट जो पोलराइजर होता है, लेफ्ट सर्कुलर पोलराइजर, और तो इसका चश्मे का, दूसरे चश्मे का राइट वाला है, उसको ब्लॉक कर देता होगा लाइट को. दैट्स व्हाई इट लुक्स डार्क. Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, so next question. How do levers create, last question by the way, how do levers create energy if the conservation of energy does not allow energy to be created? ये पक्का किसी 11th वाले का question है.
Levers do not create energy.
Okay.
I think it has to do with torque, you know. Torque and force. कभी तुमने अंदर से तुम्हारा खिड़की बंद करने का कोशिश किया है जब खिड़की बाहर की तरफ होता है? ग्रिल के थ्रू तुमने हाथ डाला होगा और खिड़की के एकदम एज में ट्राई किया, तो इट्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू पुल द खिड़की टुवर्ड्स, बिकॉज इतने स्मॉल डिस्टेंस फ्रॉम द एक्सिस पे यू आर अनेबल टू क्रिएट द सफिशिएंट टॉर्क, बट द फार अवे यू गो फ्रॉम द एक्सिस इट्स वेरी इजियर.
हाँ, you made me realize that the exact moment जब मैंने ट्राई किया था.
हाँ, इसलिए जो होता है खिड़की के पास में जाकर के एक्सिस के पास से उसको खींचने में बहुत फोर्स लगता है. So it's about force. See, it's about torque. Torque is R times F, right? So the more R you have, the greater torque you have. I think there was a philosopher in Greece who said that give me a sufficient lever and I'll move the earth or something like that.
It was Archimedes, sir.
Give me a sufficiently lengthy lever and I'll move the earth.
I'll move the earth. I don't know where he'll stand for doing that. Maybe on moon or
Yes.
something.
Yes,
So
yes.
there are a lot of questions, but I'm gonna skip them because काफी time है. Moving on to the last segment, which is
Hmm.
very important, sir. I know it's getting very late. Moving on to the last segment, it's called guidance to the lost. First of all, my all viewers and everyone, literally everyone, wants to know your journey in IIT Kanpur.
My
How
journey.
was it? Yes, Samantha. How was the experience there?
It was bittersweet.
Means if there are many students now who dream of being in an IIT. So what are the things you want to say, pros and cons about it, about that life?
See, I think IIT has a particular brand name in India.
Yes,
And
sir.
just like
Definitely.
all brand names, people are attracted to brand names, like Nike ho gaya, Adidas ho gaya, somebody wants a Nike shoes or Adidas t-shirt.
Yes.
Everything has a particular hierarchy, and being a good institute, they have their own reputation, and people want to be associated with that reputation. But ultimately, your life is your journey. IIT may help you in that journey, may not help you in that journey. It all depends upon how you use that particular. So IITs में क्या है, अच्छे teachers भी है. There are teachers like you said, not good communicators, और हर जगह ऐसा है. It's a reality everywhere. But at the end of the day, if you look at all the students going through IITs, not everybody is successful, is they? Are they? And not every person who is successful in society has gone through an IIT. So you see, every person, every student has their own journey. उनको
Yes,
अपना एक
sir.
रास्ता बनाना होता है. उसमें IIT में जाओगे तो yes, there is possibility of good infrastructure in your labs में तुम्हें सही equipments मिलेंगे because they are well funded. You will
Good
get
mentor.
exposure to good professors who have done good research in their own field. That may be a good thing or not necessarily a good thing. It's a mixed bag. You can go to internships. You
Yes, sir.
can the fact that you did your graduation somewhere may help you in future at getting a job or something like that. But all of these are probabilities. There is no 100% certainty in anything.
Yes,
It's
sir.
a multivariable equation. Your life is a multivariable equation. एक छोटा सा वेरिएबल, IIT is just one variable. उसको उतना ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंस मत दो. दे हैव सो मेनी वेरिएबल्स एंड देयर आर कोफिशिएंट्स एसोसिएटेड विद द वेरिएबल्स.
Yes, sir.
डोंट गिव द वेरिएबल ऑफ IIT सो मच इंपॉर्टेंस कि उसका कोफिशिएंट इतना बड़ा हो गया कि यू स्टॉप लुकिंग एट द अदर थिंग्स. You can get exposure outside IIT also. There are other institutes also, like IISc is there. People go abroad also. There's so many things that people do, and people become successful even if they may not necessarily be to IIT.
Yes.
So IIT is just one variable in a multivariable equation, which is your life.
Yeah.
Think of it like that.
Yes.
So you have to optimize yourself. IIT equation में आता है, बहुत अच्छी बात है, लेकिन that itself is not going to guarantee you anything. So don't be supremely confident कि तुम IIT गए तो ये हो जाएगा, वो हो जाएगा. कुछ नहीं होगा. You still have to make your own path.
It's very good advice to the students watching these. Don't मतलब ब्रांड के पीछे मत भागो. जैसा 3 Idiots में कहा है, एक्सेलेंस के पीछे भागो, सक्सेस तो आ ही जाएगी.
Excellence, competence. You see,
Yes,
जो भी तुम कर रहे हो उसको अच्छे से करो. Like एक डायलॉग था लक्ष्य मूवी में, ऋतिक रोशन जिसमें आर्मी में जाता है.
हाँ.
याद है, मैंने देखा था. उसमें एक थोड़ा सा कॉमिकल सीन था. तो उसके पिताजी उसको बोलते तुम क्या करना चाहते हो. ऋतिक रोशन कहता है कि मैं कुछ समथिंग ही वांट्स टू डू समथिंग. तो क्यों करना चाहते हो. तो ऋतिक रोशन कहता है कि जो भी करो अच्छे से करो. घास काटो तो वो भी अच्छे से काटो. डॉक्टर बनो तो अच्छे से बनो. सो व्हाट यू शुड स्ट्राइव फॉर इन लाइफ इज कॉम्पिटेंस इन वॉट एवर इट इज दैट यू आर डूइंग. तुम घास काट रहे हो या तुम कुछ खेल रहे हो या तुम कोई प्रोग्राम बना रहे हो या तुम रिसर्च कर रहे हो या पढ़ा रहे हो. वॉट एवर इट इज दैट यू आर डूइंग, you should strive to be the best version of yourself in that.
Yes.
You cannot compete with everybody, yaar. There are lots and lots of talented people in so many things. सबके साथ तुम compete नहीं कर सकते. Nobody can. कोई नहीं है. Einstein was also Einstein in his own field.
हाँ. Hilbert मैथमेटिशियन, उन्होंने काफी पंच डाउन कर दिया था आइंस्टाइन को.
So try to be the best version of yourself in your journey. Become competent in whatever it is that you are doing.
So there are very मतलब barriers in especially in an Indian student's life. जैसे जो aspiring physicist होते हैं या फिर कुछ मतलब फिजिक्स के रिसर्च में कुछ करना चाहते हैं, बट देयर आर मेनी बैरियर्स लाइक फैमिली प्रेशर हो गया या फिर फाइनेंशियल प्रॉब्लम्स हो गई. मतलब is there any advice you want to give to those students?
See, life जिनका easy होता है वो कोई life नहीं है.
हाँ, ये
struggles and overcoming difficulties makes who you are. ठीक है. अब हाँ, ये तो सही बात है कि सबके लिए बराबर नहीं है स्ट्रगल्स, डिपेंडिंग अपॉन वेयर यू आर बॉर्न, डिपेंडिंग अपॉन यू नो व्हाट काइंड ऑफ, तुम इंडिया में पैदा हुए हो, बाहर पैदा हुए हो, बहुत सारा फ़र्क है यार. समबडी मे बी हु इज़ बॉर्न इन कनाडा और यूरोप हैज़ बेटर फैसिलिटीज़ इन लाइफ सम कंपेयर टू समबडी बॉर्न इन इंडिया. लेकिन इसमें देयर इज़ ऑल्सो द ग्लास हाफ एम्प्टी ग्लास फुल वाला कन्वर्सेशन. यू आर बॉर्न इन इंडिया, यू आर नॉट बॉर्न इन आई डोंट नो सीरिया और समथिंग जहाँ पे कोई फ्यूचर नहीं है. फॉरगेट फिजिक्स यार, surviving itself is a challenge, right? So life is like that, you know. थोड़ा सा challenge है तो उसको overcome करना पड़ेगा, and that is the purpose of life, you know. जो कोई उस दिन मैं कोई वीडियो देख रहा था, वहाँ पे there is a famous YouTuber जिसने एक कहानी डायलॉग बोला था जो मुझे बहुत पसंद आया. वो ये है कि अगर घोड़े के रेस में घोड़े पे जो चढ़ता है उसको क्या बोलते हैं, जॉकी. ये जॉकी बहुत मारता है, यू नो. और वो मारता है इसलिए ताकि घोड़ा तेज दौड़े और वो जीते. तो अगर लाइफ या भगवान जो भी तुम कहना चाहते हो, वो अगर तुम्हें स्ट्रगल्स दे रहा है, वो इसलिए दे रहा है बिकॉज ही वांट्स यू टू विन. लाइक दैट. अगर भगवान या नेचर तुम्हें स्ट्रगल्स दे रहा है, इट्स बिकॉज ही वांट्स यू टू विन. तो डोंट बी डीमोटिवेटेड बाय दीज आर जस्ट इंस्पिरेशंस दैट कैन हेल्प यू टू सक्सीड इन लाइफ.
To all the students who are watching, I just want to say कि सर की जो बातें हैं इसको कहीं पे ऐसा बड़े से चार्ट पे लिखो और उसको टांग दो and read it every day, especially on those days you are feeling down. मैं तो यही करने वाला हूँ. अभी मैं इधर पर टांग दूंगा किधर. What are your advice to the teachers? Some of the teachers या future teachers who are watching, there are a lot of my friends who teach physics and other subjects. तो उनके लिए आपके पास क्या advice है कि what do you want to say to them?
First of all, you need to know that you want to be a teacher. हमारे देश में ऐसा होता है, टीचर वही बनता है जो बाकी कुछ और नहीं बन पाया. That is a very wrong way of structuring society. बहुत लोग ऐसे होते हैं, they like teaching. I love teaching. I personally find teaching to be a very very fulfilling job. Like लोग काम करते हैं तो उनको लगता है ये काम है, ये किसी तरह कंप्लीट करके मैं रिलैक्स करूँगा. बट फॉर मी टीचिंग इन itself is a fulfilling job. It's a process in which I can engage with information, I can engage with students, I can learn from my students can learn from me. It's a very much fulfilling process. At least my last 8 years of teaching, मेरे को पता ही नहीं चला टाइम कैसे चला जाता. जब मैं कॉलेज में पढ़ा तो पता ही नहीं चलता लेक्चर कैसे ख़त्म हो गया, सेमेस्टर कैसे ख़त्म हो गया, बिकॉज आई एम सो मच एंगेज्ड इन इट, बिकॉज आई जेन्युइनली लव टीचिंग. अब सबका ऐसा नहीं होता है. Not everybody is into that thing. You know, everybody finds pleasure in their own ways. So first you need to know whether or not you want to become that. You find teaching to be fulfilling or not. If you find teaching to be fulfilling, then you should absolutely go there, because it's an extremely fulfilling way of living your life. You know, you're engaging with young people, you're engaging with the young ideas, you're engaging with, you know, the process of learning. You're also learning. You have to be a student all your life.
Yes,
नाम के तुम टीचर हो, but reality में तुम student हो. Because I am a student, yeah, I'm learning and I know that बुढ़ापे तक मुझे सीखना है, but that makes life interesting. तो मुझे तो लगता है टीचर को वही बनना चाहिए जो टीचर बनना चाहते हैं. हमारे देश में क्या हो चुका है कि जो कोई नहीं बन पाया, कुछ और नहीं बन पाया, सब ट्राई कर लिया, इंजीनियर ट्राई कर लिया, डॉक्टर ट्राई कर लिया, यूपीएससी दे दिया, कुछ नहीं हुआ तो टीचर बन रहे. तो ये गलत बात है. तो ये इसी की वजह से जो है हम इम्प्रूव नहीं कर पा रहे, बिकॉज वी आर नॉट एस्पायरिंग टू बी टीचर्स. टीचर्स आर लाइक ओके, फिल्टर आउट, ओके, सब अपनी अपनी जगह चले गए, जो बच गए वो टीचर. ऐसा नहीं. फिर वो क्या इंस्पायर करेंगे तुम्हें? People who are ultimately failures, how are they going to inspire you to become a better version of yourself? ठीक है, there are people out there who aspire to teach. I know, I personally am. There are a lot of people out there. Somebody who knows and wants and has a passion for teaching and communicating and interacting with this flow of ideas. They should become a good teachers and they create role models for others to follow. थोड़ा बहुत समाज में भी इस तरह की चीजों को चेंज करना पड़ेगा कि
just like for me you are.
Thank you. You are actually very kind. That's one truth of it. But thank you so much, Faiz, for saying such nice things, inviting me to this podcast. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I really love this talk.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
so my thanks to this, and I also have my best wishes for your channel.
थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू।
Whatever it is you want.
जस्ट लाइक मैंने बचपन से देखा है मेरे घर में, मींस मेरी मम्मी भी एक प्रिंसिपल रह चुकी हैं, शी वाज अ टीचर एंड देन अ प्रिंसिपल एंड अदर। तो लिटरली मेरा पूरा जो बचपन बीता है वो स्कूल के अंदर ही बीता है। मैं स्कूल से जाता था और फिर मम्मी के स्कूल में जाता था, एंड फिर घर आता था तो उधर ट्यूशंस चलते थे। तो आई वाज लाइक होल टाइम बिटवीन टीचर्स। तो आई वांट टू बी लाइक हर, मतलब आई वांट टू बी अ टीचर लाइक हर, लाइक यू, जो पीपल की लाइफ को मूव कर दे। मतलब you are literally changing lives. You are changing the way people think, way students think, how to think you're teaching them. So
And it's a very responsible job also, because
Yes,
बहुत
sir.
बच्चे क्या होते हैं, they fall in love with the subject because of the teacher,
yes sir.
or they develop a distaste for the subject because of the teacher.
Actually
So you are deciding so many things in people's lives, so it's a responsible job.
yes sir. So would you like to give a final message to our viewers, especially क्योंकि मुझे पता है mostly students ही देख रहे होंगे, या फिर तो उनके लिए आप कुछ अगर last words बोलना चाहें?
Well, as I said, try to be the best version of yourself. Develop the skill in that your domain. जिस भी domain में तुम हो, you are studying physics, you're studying chemistry, you're planning to do civil services, you're into sports, whatever. Life में success के लिए दो चीज़ें चाहिए. एक तो चाहिए तुम्हारा passion, दूसरा होना चाहिए skill. Passion तो क्या होता है, we don't really decide what things we are passionate about. But skill is something that we have to develop. And skill को develop करने के लिए थोड़ा बहुत discipline चाहिए, थोड़ा बहुत determination चाहिए, मेहनत चाहिए. So combination of these things are there. So थोड़ा बहुत डिसिप्लिन, मेहनत एंड डिटर्मिनेशन के साथ अगर तुम अपने जिस भी जगह में तुम्हारा पैशन है उसमें तुम स्किल डेवलप करोगे तो डेफिनेटली यू विल डेवलप कॉम्पिटेंस इन दैट डोमेन. एंड इफ यू डेवलप कॉम्पिटेंस इन वट एवर इट इज यू आर डूइंग, you will find a way to survive in this world.
That's very good advice. Everyone should मतलब इसको ऐसा रिकॉर्ड कर लो इतने पार्ट को, एंड रोज सुनो इसको सुबह उठते ही, रात में सोने से पहले. इट विल गिव यू मोटिवेशन. खैर, थैंक यू फॉर कमिंग सर. एंड मेरा बस एक ही मोटिव है कि अभी के लिए तो कि चैनल को इतना ग्रो करो कि अगर कभी वेरिटासियम आए इंडिया में तो ही वुड लाइक टू कोलैबोरेट विद मी. मेरे को तो बस इतना ही चाहिए.
मुझे लगता है कि इंडियन स्पेस में साइंटिफिक चैनल्स की जरूरत है.
यस सर, दैट्स व्हाट आई थिंक. मेरे को भी यही मतलब इसीलिए मैं 3 साल से मतलब आई कुड हैव डन ऑल दिस इन इंग्लिश एंड गेन फॉरेन व्यूअर्स. आई कुड हैव डन समथिंग एल्स लाइक वाइन्स और कॉमेडी स्केचेस, बट आई चोज टू डू दिस. 3 साल में मेरे 1000 से ऊपर सब्सक्राइबर अब जाके गए, and but still I want to do this, so I'm doing
But
it.
YouTube is a marathon, you know, it takes time.
Yes sir.
It takes a lot of time.
मेरे साथ के जितने फ्रेंड्स थे वो कॉमेडी स्केचेस एंड मोटिवेशनल वीडियोस बनाते हैं, एंड दे आर लाइक 1 million सब्सक्राइबर्स.
1 million?
मेरे साथ ही स्टार्ट किया था सर उन लोगों ने. सम आर लाइक टेक गाइस.
देखो, अल्टीमेटली लाइफ में ना, अगर तुम बंदर हो तो तुम स्विमिंग मत करने जाओ, अगर तुम हाथी हो तो उड़ने की कोशिश मत करो. Just get to know who you are.
Yes sir.
We should never compare a monkey climbing a tree with a fish swimming in the water. Everybody has their own interest, has their own skills. So I think किसी ने कहा था कि if you're going to put a race, एक monkey और fish को तुम पानी में रेस करने के लिए बोलोगे तो obviously one of them is going to be the winner. अगर उसेन को पेड़ चढ़ने के लिए बोलोगे the other person is going to be the winner. So it all depends upon your passion. You figure out what your passion is and you go ahead. You can't do what somebody else is doing. You should never try to copy others. You be your best version of who you are.
Yes, sir. Just like you said. So I'll give the link to your channel in the description. Go check out sir's channel for the love of physics. बहुत ही अच्छा चैनल है. I'm sure जो तुम अगर 12th लेवल पे हो या फिर BSc हो या BTech any level, हायर एजुकेशन में one of the best channel on Indian platform. Literally, ask anyone in the comments. So thank you for coming here, sir. Taking time for being in this podcast. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much, Faz. Thank you, everyone, whoever is watching. I hope you all the best, and more importantly, I wish you good health to you and your family during these times. Take care. God bless.
Bye bye, everyone. Bye bye.